delegation by Councillor Creed.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be gathered together as a town council and guests at this time. We acknowledge thy hand over our community, over all humanity, and we pray that all that we do in this meeting this evening will be in accordance with thy principles and thy will, and pray that thou would bless us with wisdom as we discuss the items that are on our agenda this evening. We're thankful for the community, we're thankful for the people in our community, for all the service that is given, and we pray for thy blessings now at this time in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councillor. In this order, 6B has to do with the discussion of the Fireman's Sweetheart Ball, possibly that becoming the meal for the Friday evening of our retreat. So that's 6B. 7C is we have to have a motion to appoint our auditor. We have a 3-year contract with YPM, but annually we'll need that motion to appoint YPM as our auditor. The pre-audit meeting has already been held. And 7D, there's a proposed blood tribe public meeting, I believe is a fair word. It's just sort of a new initiative. That's 7D. And that's about it. The chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda with the additions. Councillor Kronen so moves. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? The agenda is adopted with the aforementioned additions. We have a delegation we're expecting in a few minutes. We will move right through as much as we can. The chair will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes of the January 8th meeting of council. Councillor Creed so moves. Any discussion on those minutes or adoption of said minutes? Seeing none, I will call that question. All in favor? Carries. Business arising. In your package you will see a letter from the Mayor of Glenwood, Mr. Mayor Gates, and Ben Gates. And so basically from that we have a suggestion that Glenwood be given a position on the FCSS board and Hillspring be given a position on the FCSS board, and that board be expanded to 9. Did I get that accurate? Okay, so that will come forward as a rewritten bylaw regarding FCSS, and we will see that when another month or so.
Mr. Mayor, if council is in favor of that addition, then we'll draft the amendment to the bylaw and bring it forward at the next council meeting.
The chair then will entertain a motion to so amend that FCSS bylaw. Councillor Court so moves. Any discussion on that motion to amend the FCSS bylaw, Councillor?
It's just a comment. I think having been sitting in the past on the FCSS board, I think it makes sense that if you contribute money-wise to an organization that you are represented at that table.
You get a vote.
I think it makes sense.
Any further comments, Council? I will call that question. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Did you get that, Jill? All right. Thank you very much. 6B is the firemen's dinner served at 6:30 with a bit of with the dance and the silent auction to follow. There's been some discussion that because Marian's had people want to sell her tickets, and of course her answer is, well, our retreat is that night. It's been the practice in previous retreats that we have retreat between about 3 and 6, and then we break for a meal. And so the thought is that we could go as a council with spouses to the Fireman's Ball. Any discussion on that? Do we need a motion on that, Marian?
No,
It
I
looks-
just,
That'd be on the 8th.
That would be on Friday the 8th, again, as part of our retreat. I mean, basically, typically, we do retreat sessions from 3 to 6, and then, you got to have dinner. And that's about all we do on the Friday night, and then we reconvene Saturday morning. At that point, we'll be upstairs, and we'll reconvene on Saturday morning with some continental breakfast and proceed throughout the day, and then have some lunch and get as much done as we can. So we'll arrange to, and we'll need RSVPs as well, but I'm guessing since everyone will be here for the retreat, is there anyone who at this point is of the opinion they will not be able to attend the retreat?
My schedule is not be there, but I'm sure.
Okay, so we'll need RSVPs within a few days, and not very long. The date is the 8th. We could probably, would we dare hold off those RSVPs as late as the committee of the whole on the 5th? We probably should have those by Monday at the latest. That's about a week.
my preference would be if I could have them by the end of this week or Monday.
Okay.
Just, they need to make their plans as well for the number
sure.
that will be
Okay.
attending,
About
right?
2
So-
minutes. Just text her.
Okay, so we'll need that RSVP, let's say within about 72 hours then. Okay, 48 hours, something like that. The request for decision is regarding the community irrigation line funding. The labor portion of that was frozen, but some of the material and some of the required commodities and supplies, if you will, you can't always freeze those. And as it was a 3-year project, we've had some cost overruns, as you see there, in the neighborhood of $23,000. Now, there's, if I recall, there's some grant money involved for 14 of that, and then Marian has had some of the recreation department funding that's been withheld and not spent to cover the other 9,000 of the overrun on that. Do we need anything
Well, we need a motion.
from administration on that, Marian?
Do you want further explanation?
No, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
So anybody need any further discussion?
What the mayor was referring to with the labor portion and the materials over, the cost of materials is, this originally was tendered as a 1-year contract, but the bid came in substantially higher than we had budgeted, and so they agreed to put it over a 3-year term, but they only agreed to keep the labor portion at the original tender, but if materials were to increase, they would charge that. The other thing that attributes to that is $6,700 that we paid for the new screen that was causing the golf course some problems with their irrigation because it was too small, if you remember. So we replaced that screen as well, which wasn't in the original projected budget. So I did ask Randy to hold off on a couple of minor, less important expenses in his parks material budget because we knew early December that there was going to be an overage. We just didn't have the final numbers at that point.
I'll make a motion.
So pursuant to the required action here on this request for decision form, Councillor Smith moves approval of the funding composed as such. MSI approved in the amount of $14,000 and change, and the balance of $9,400 and change from Parks Material. Councillor Smith so moves that approval. Any discussion on that motion? I will call the question. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Watching the clock for 5:15, I'd like to welcome, I'm guessing this is Ms. Frank from the Old Man River, or Old Man Watershed Council. So we are on schedule and you'll be up here. So we're just excited. Good to have you. The pool grant funding application, that's going to take a little bit of time. And maybe what we should do, we got a couple we can do. A Can I have a motion, can I have a motion to appoint YPM as our auditor? Councillor Dahl, so moved. Any discussion on that motion? I'll call that question. All in favor? Motion carries. YPM is appointed as our auditor. There's a little bit of detail that's involved in 7D. So can we handle that in 3 or 4 minutes, Jeff? Okay, if you take 7D for us, please. It's a new initiative with a former member of the Tribal Council, Sheldon Daichi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jeff will explain a little bit about that. There's a meeting, and what's the date of the proposed meeting, Jeff?
February
20th?
8th.
Oh, February 8th, okay.
Yeah, February 8th.
What time, what?
Starting at 9 a.m.
Okay, oh, that's gonna be an interesting day, because we have our
Yeah.
retreat beginning that day. Okay, so if you want to just take a couple minutes, tell us what we're meeting on.
Sure. So Sheldon and Phyllis Day Chief met with me on Friday, and they've requested the attendance of one counselor to this meeting on the 8th. They've been working with the Blood Tribe, and they have support of Blood Tribe Chief and Council to work on a crime prevention strategy. And this involves a number of stakeholders, and they feel that the town of Cardston, rightfully so, is an important stakeholder in this discussion. They'd like to get this group together for an initial meeting, really to identify a number of key issues, identify key stakeholders, and to do some planning and developing their action plan. So again, they're just looking for one counselor to represent the town of Cardston, February 8th, 9 a.m. in standoff.
Okay, so let me just add, that's going to be one of the benefits of being upstairs. We don't have to deal with this distracting noise and whatnot from folks that are out there. Okay, so in standoff, you said 9 a.m.?
Yep.
I
Interesting.
have no reason I can't be there at this time, so you can put me down to attend that meeting. Makes some sense to carpool. We probably should have a couple more.
Didn't they just want one though?
Well, they're going to have 3 of their folks there, is my understanding.
They have asked for just one
Yeah.
to represent, but
Okay, well, I will go then. Unless it involves, the specifics of the meeting involves someone from our council, Jeff, that's more appropriately part of
I work with
the discussion. So for now, then, I will,
if I might, Mr. Mayor, just for consistency purposes, I'll ask that we send a representative from administration as well, so we have that
Okay.
moving forward.
perfect,
that's
thank you.
okay.
Thank you. So Friday at 9, you can put me down for that on the 8th. All right. We really don't have the time before we get into the pool funding discussion, so I'd like to again welcome Shannon Frank. And the podium is yours, and again, Ms. Frank is from the Old Man Watershed Organization, and will talk to us. Shannon, we want to allow adequate time for some Q&A.
Yep.
And my understanding is that you want it all together about a half an hour, is that correct?
That would be great, yeah, thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I'm happy to be here. I've been the executive director for about 1.5 years now, so I'm looking forward to getting to know you a bit better in the future. And just wanted to provide an overview of what we do and who we are and some opportunities that the town of Cardston might want to get involved with. And I'll try to remember to point out things in your package as I go through, because there's a lot in there, and some of it is stuff that we could tailor to your town. So I'll try to remember to point that out. hills to prairie. And so this is really the area, any precipitation it's home, it's where we recreate, and we around environmental issues, concern about drought, water quality. And so that's when they started forming the Water for Life strategy. And out of that, Water for Life came watershed councils. And there's 11 of watershed councils across the province now. Some are new, some are old. We're one of the older ones. But we really are connected to the government through this strategy, and we were set up in order to be that local voice, to bring local issues to the province and try and bring people together to find good solutions that, you know, the majority of people could get on board with. And so we do, we're called Watershed Planning and Advisory Council. So our main job is planning, is managing this landscape and providing advice to the government. This is a great quote that I like to show people from our annual general meeting in 2010. I think it really kind of encapsulates what watershed councils are about, and it's that watershed level work can seem overwhelming because of the large scale, but we can make it more manageable by recognizing that we can manage cooperatively what we can't individually. And Lauren is a very eloquent speaker, and he says that is an old powerful concept called community. And that, I think, really captures why we were formed and what our job is and how we operate day to day. We do have a diverse board of directors that is trying to be inclusive and represent all sectors and all perspectives. There's probably some folks on there that you recognize. Right now, your representative would be Terry Kirchhoff, Chair of Mayors and Reeves. And again, these are the folks that give us general guidance and direction, but we do work with hundreds, if not thousands, of people across that watershed to really try and get everybody's point of view. This is our mission right now. We are a not-for-profit organization, and we are also a registered charity. And our goal is to maintain and improve the Oldman watershed by improving and sharing knowledge. So we do quite a bit of research, and we try to share the findings of that scientific research with the community. Building and strengthening stakeholder partnerships. It's kind of the core of who we are. Everything is about partnerships and what we do. Community action and stewardship. That is our education programs and our on-the-ground stewardship practices that we try to get urban people and rural people to kind of adopt these good practices for the environment. And developing and implementing integrated land and water plans. So as a watershed council, we are mandated through Water for Life to report on the state of the watershed or the health of the watershed and to develop watershed management plans. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. We also have 6 teams. On each team, we have about 17 to 20 volunteers, and they come from governments. A lot of them are staff with municipalities or the government of Alberta or a university or college. There's just general public members that are just interested and keen to help out. It really is a good mix of folks. And I'm not going to go through all the teams, but just wanted you to know that, we have this great resource of expertise that we work with, and that's how we get things done. So our State of the Watershed report, this again is one of our mandates, is to report on the health or state of the watershed. So these are the ratings that we've come up with. We did our first report in 2010, and our goal is to repeat them every 5 or 10 years and see if things are improving or not, and what progress we've made. And these are the indicators that we've used to come up with those ratings. Those are the things that we looked at. So in Cardston here, you're in the southern tributaries. And so for terrestrial and riparian ecology, looking at land cover, erosion, riparian health, and land use, you're given a rating of fair. And this is more to do with the environment, right? This isn't really looking at the social and economic. So water quantity is trends in natural flow, actual use versus natural flow, performance in meeting in-stream objectives and water conservation objectives, so the water that's left in the river for fish and whatnot. And then irrigation and municipal water use and efficiency. And so for that, you have a rating of poor right now. But don't be alarmed. A lot of it is naturally low flows. The Americans also take a large portion of the St. Mary's, and that is factored in as well. And then water quality is rated as fair. Generally, water quality is poorer in wet years, right? Flood years, that's to be expected. And so once we did our State of the Watershed report, the next step is to develop an integrated watershed management plan. And so these are kind of the three things that are going into the plan. The State of the Watershed report that I just mentioned is in the middle there. And then what else we did was we just went out and we talked to as many folks as we could from different sectors and different perspectives. And through these interviews and surveys and focus groups, we came up with the community planning vision. So this document kind of goes through people's expectations, their concerns, what they want the watershed to look like in the future, and we came up with a set of kind of general outcomes. They're, kind of the motherhood statements that people want to see in general. And then the next step was the risk assessment, saying what would keep us from achieving that vision. And priority setting. We know we can't do everything. We only have 3 staff and a lot of volunteers, but we always need to set priorities. And so what we've done is we've actually set 8 goals for the watershed. And so these are the goals. And the one that we're working on right now is Goal 3, manage and protect the integrity of headwaters and source waters. And that really is probably close to home for you guys, being where you are, close to the headwaters. And then some of the other goals that we are working on kind of the scientific basis for, that we will get to an action plan in the future, will be things like groundwater, water quantity, water quality, habitat, invasive species, and emerging contaminants are 2 kind of big ones that we don't know a lot about. Like, you might have heard of the quagga mussels that can clog irrigation pipes and municipal drain pipes and all that. They can completely stop an entire distribution system. So those are the kinds of things that we want to keep out of the watershed so that they don't cause problems. But just focusing on the headwaters for now. And I know you guys, a couple of you attended our public meeting in Cardston, and so thank you for that. And I'm not going to dwell on this because I think you have a pretty good idea from that meeting what we're doing. But just for the others, just really briefly. So the goal is manage and protect the integrity of headwaters and source waters. This is the area that we've delineated as the headwaters. It does follow major highways, so 22 and 3 and 6 for the most part. And in this area is actually 90% of the flow of the Old Man River. So the whole rest of the watershed and downstream to Medicine Hat and further is actually dependent on this area for its water supply. 90% is pretty amazing, actually. That's how dependent we are on this area. And there's been a lot of concern over the last few years around logging and recreation and what's going to happen in the future if these things continue. And so we're trying to get a handle on what is the real impact scientifically and how big are these concerns and what needs to be done. So the process that we're using to kind of answer some of those questions is a public process shown on the top there through a series of meetings throughout the watershed. And then the bottom process is more for just stakeholders, the people that have a direct influence on the ground. And so we're having a series of meetings to go through the science and what the people in the general public are saying and what needs to happen. And we're going to be drafting an action plan that's going to focus on setting targets, as specific target as we can, say for example a water quality target or a linear disturbance threshold, things like that. And then outlining what the Old Man Watershed Council can do, what the partners that are committed to the process can do, and that, for example, could be a environmental group or a government or a municipality, any sort of thing, like any partner that has the potential to do something on the ground. And then lastly, we'll go through a process to look at what we want to recommend to the government of Alberta to do. So I just kind of whizzed through that pretty quick, so feel free to ask questions. But I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it since you've already been to some of the public meetings. And then just a couple other programs that we have that the town of Cardston might be interested in. Our urban team has a whole bunch of things, and that's what's mostly in your package there, is some of our brochures and materials that we hand out at events, and some places actually will mail out with their water bill. And so you'll see in your package that some of them are for Lethbridge or another town that would have to be tailored to your community, but that's something we would help you with, is we could tailor that information to your community or give you those brochures or whatever that you wanted. And so that's one thing that we do, is provide resources to municipalities. We did have a workshop to kind of start looking at how we can help municipalities promote water conservation and things like that. And then our two big programs are Yellowfish Road and Prairie Urban Garden. And so Cardston actually does participate in the Yellowfish Road program every second year generally, and where the kids go out and they paint yellowfish, right? And so we're happy to provide a little bit of funding for that, to provide lunch and prizes for those groups that go out and paint. And that's our way of trying to encourage school groups or youth groups or municipalities to do that. And we continue to do that. And also in your booklet, there's a stormwater postcard that is a new one that is pretty cute. It just outlines things people can do in their backyards and around their home to make sure that the stormwater running off their property isn't, full of pesticides or fertilizers and that type of thing. And then the Prairie Urban Garden Project follows the 7 principles of xeriscaping, which is all about using drought-tolerant native perennials that are still beautiful. Like these are some examples that are local, instead of just a lawn that requires a lot of maintenance and a lot of inputs. So we're trying to promote these kind of environmentally friendly gardens for water conservation, but also importantly for stormwater quality, because we know from science that towns have an impact just as much as rural communities and farms. So we're trying to get everybody involved. So these are just some examples of these prairie urban gardens or xeriscapes, just to show that it's not about rock. A lot of people get concerned that we're promoting just having rock everywhere, and that's not what it's about. It's about plants, and this is a native grass called blue grama grass that makes a wonderful lawn. And this is just another example of perennials and how you could use them instead of lawn. And then our rural team projects that you might be interested in are the Holding the Reins is actually coming up February 13th. And this year we're focusing on fire in the watershed. So we're looking at what we've learned from the Lost Creek fire near Crow's Nest, and then the Granham and Milk River fires on the prairie. And so what are the things that we need to know from those? And the Watershed Legacy Program is our way of helping rural landowners. We provide them with grant funding and technical assistance if they want to do an environmental project on their land. Most of the applications that we get are for riparian pastures, so fencing out the river or creek and managing it more carefully and being able to control access better and putting in a watering unit and pump. And obviously you're in the town, but in this Cardston area, in the Cardston County, we've actually funded almost $40,000 worth of rural projects, and your community has been very active in that, so that's really great to see. And then our watershed science team, again, they do a bunch of research. Groundwater studies is our current focus. We're looking at high nitrate levels in certain areas, arsenic levels, and then some more general aquifer mapping and trying to get a handle on quality and quantity. And then promoting and profiling these innovations and good research that's being done through tours and forums and a directory. This on the right there is just an example of a summary. We summarize all the projects that are happening each year so that people can see in a quick snapshot what's going on. And so hopefully I didn't whiz through that too quickly, but I didn't want to take up too much time and leave room for questions and discussion. So.
Well, Shannon, thank you. I have to comment, the photography in your PowerPoint is just stunning. And that really adds to the appeal of your PowerPoint, and an excellent job. Council, any comments or questions for Shannon?
Yeah, I have a question for you. You had a spreadsheet where you defined the quality of water or quantity of water. And you mentioned that in our area, the water quantity was poor. I found it interesting. I wanted you to tell me on which scientific study that is based on, if you know.
It's based on a lot of studies. This is a compilation of everything we could get our hands on. Most of the water quantity stuff comes from Alberta Environment and now Sustainable Resource Development, because they do the vast majority, if not all, of the water quantity monitoring with their flow stations. And we also have some data from the federal government as well.
I find it interesting because more recent studies around this area were done to say that in the south we do have water and we are open for business, which kind of contradicts what's there.
Yes, and I know what those studies are. What they mean is that there's room in water licenses. Right, that you can expand how much, like say the river, they're only using 50% of their license, so there is that 50% left that they could sell or trade or whatever. Mm-hmm. We're only looking at actual water in the river.
Okay, so you're looking at flow essentially.
Yeah, like
okay,
we're not looking at licenses allocations, because if everybody used their full allocation, the river would be dry.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Creed?
Just to follow up on that same question, do these charts showing the water quantity have a relationship to the rainfall in various areas of the province? Like if there's, we are in a semi-desert area here, so is that the reason that we have a low water is because we're just a low rainfall area?
Well, it's what we looked at was these indicators, was trends and natural flow. So if there's a declining trend in the river, like the river is actually having less water year after year, even if it's just a little bit, that would make a difference. Actual use versus natural flow, so how much are we actually taking out? How much is left in the river for the environment, or those are the in-stream objectives and water conservation objectives, and then efficiency. So we looked at all of those things to make our best guess. I know what you mean. I would say from this map, wrong way. From this map you could see the purple is the southern tributaries that was rated as poor for water quantity, and the prairie is the beige, foothills is green, and mountains is blue. And so we did have to compare these 4 very different areas on the same playing field, right? And so you are comparing very heavy snowfall and precipitation in the mountains to the drier prairie and portions of the southern tribs. So there might be a little bit of that coming into play because you do have to compare them, and maybe it's not an easy comparison, if that helps.
Okay, Shannon, that definitely enhances our awareness, and as we live here and recreate here and so forth, and obviously we love Waterton and getting out, and if you didn't do the kind of work and identify the issues and concerns, and then from there flows the awareness, and so that's really critical. So thank you very much for your work, and tell Mayor Kirchhoff that we didn't work you over too rough.
No, you're very kind.
Thank you very much. Mr. Peterson, did you want a packet here? There's some very interesting things in here that I think might be interesting.
I might have a couple more in my car. I can rummage through. Sure.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, we'll get you one.
Okay, that's fine.
And anybody else in the gallery, we didn't want to leave anybody out, but I know that Mr. Peterson has some very deep interest in native plants and such, and so there's some very nice information here on it. So we'll make sure you get that, Larry. Thanks once again, Shannon. Any final questions? No, thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. Take care.
Forget you. The agenda item that we'll go into now, I think the timing of it is going to be a little bit tight, but I also think it's a very, very critical item, and so we need to do justice to it. And I think we've all had a chance to look through it, and I was quite intrigued by this direction, which might lead us in the issue of the pool, which has been on the front burner bouncing around for a year or so. Jeff, do you want to take this one and run with it for just a bit?
Of course. Give me 1 second. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
That's okay. I was just about to go out and lock up a couple of those young kids up. Anyway.
I'll turn these off and then just go to the podium. Okay, since we've had a real thorough discussion about the pool with council, we've had a couple of potential changes in the direction we're going with the pool. So probably the last time we've had thorough discussion about it, we had presented both a conceptual design and a financial plan that council reviewed for renovating the existing building and then building a new basin to the south where the skate park is now. And as we were kind of going down those roads, there was a grant that came up. We're calling it the CIF. I can't remember what the acronym breaks down, but CIIF, which is intended, it's a federal grant program which is intended for renovation of municipal infrastructure. particularly recreation facilities and things like that. So we applied for the grant. Noel's done a ton of work on this grant, just spent a bunch of time. It's quite particular, we're finding out. But one of the particulars is that they want to make sure that this is a renovation of an existing building and not so much new construction. They're not looking to fund new buildings, they're looking to fix up and renovate existing municipal buildings. So one of the things, in order to accommodate the grant, that we've had to look at changing is the basin piece of this. And what we've submitted for the purposes of this grant is essentially a full renovation plan where we renovate the current basin, and we've talked with some pool people about how we would do that. In short, you would dig out the top 4 feet of the pool basin, you would put your crawl space in, you would redo all the mechanical, and then line the whole thing into one piece. We'd put the water feature part off to the side and basically contain it in the current footprint we have at the pool. And that's what we've submitted for the purposes of the grant. So what we have now is a bit of a different scenario with a bit of a different funding schedule. And that funding schedule is presented to you in the package, where what we're calling phase 1 of the project, which is essentially the entire outdoor water portion, everything but the building, is looking at about a $1.5 million touch, but that's full mechanical, the deck, the grounds, and we have to do a few unique things like dig a hole to the basement and core a hole in it to get the new equipment in and old out, and fun things like that. So there's some logistical complexities with the renovation, and we didn't look at it super close originally because the costs were so close. We felt it was better just to go new. But with the $250,000 grant, it starts to make fiscal sense to look harder at the renovation, because the fact of the matter is we weren't fully funded for the first design. So you can see in front of you what we need to take, and the motion is actually put forward here, is that we have to show the grant funder that this council supports the funding for phase 1 of the project to renovate the existing pool, replace the mechanical equipment, and replace the wading pool and deck with a leisure pool. And the town is requesting funding from CIF in the amount of $248,108. And then we had to show other sources of funding. Just a couple of implications I want to make clear. If we get this grant, and we'll probably know literally in the next couple of weeks, we have a time frame commitment to begin the project immediately and have it done essentially this year, which means there would not be a pool this year. So I want council to be very clear that that is an implication, that if we receive the $250,000 and this is the route council wants to go, that potentially we got to start February 15th, March 1st, and commence construction and get a design. We haven't awarded contracts to an architect, we haven't awarded contracts to a pool contractor. We haven't done those things, but those things can come together relatively quickly. We have the contacts that we need to put tenders together and get them to competitively bid and get that worked out. But that's one implication. And the other implication is that it will be a different plan and potentially a scaled down plan, and it won't be touching the building in this phase. And so potentially we may need to look at a 5-year plan after this year for retrofit of the building. That's an option. But I'll tell you, and I'm fairly comfortable in saying, we don't have another $1 million kicking around after this to go ahead and tear into the building. We just don't have it. We were underfunded on the whole project to start with. So this grant gave us an opportunity to potentially do the entire outdoor wet side of this in this calendar year. But we just want you to be aware that if people aren't happy that there isn't a pool this year, obviously they can see why, but that would have to be a decision made fairly quickly. And Marian and I were talking about a number of things. One of the conditions you had in your earlier motion was that you wanted 10% of the project to be raised from the community before you'd be willing to take out debt to fund the unfunded portion up to $500,000. I would suggest in this case we may not have time for that kind of fundraising to take place, but council could look at something like the amount that you're going to borrow, in this case $375,000, may have to be raised on phase 2, or that borrowing may have to be paid down by local philanthropy and fundraising before we would proceed with the phase 2, for example. So while this motion, we were able to tell the grant funders that in principle, council supported it, and I still believe you do. But the funding model is different and the implications are different, so we just wanted that to be spelled out relatively clearly before council passed any motion.
Jeff, what are your thoughts about, go ahead with this 6 or 8 months from now, what are your thoughts about the basin that we end up with? What should be our life expectancy of that basin?
Again, without having an awarded contractor at this point, we've just been still dealing with Western Rec. What they're saying, if they were the ones that were to do it, again, they knock off the top 4 feet, they bring in their metal wall system with the crawl space for all the new mechanical. We would have very little of the current basin left by the time you jackhammer out all of your drains and all your skimmers have been dug out, but all your supply and return, basically you're hammering all that out, and then you'd re-concrete what's left of the existing basin, and then that vinyl liner, and I think most of you have seen actually a sample of that really thick vinyl liner, that it would all be one welded piece once that was all done. I would anticipate we wouldn't have an inferior life expectancy. If it is, it'd be marginal over a brand new basin.
Well, and that's encouraging. The second comment I have is I am totally on side with at least the fact that we're getting brand new mechanical. That to me is hugely critical.
Mention the use of proceeds.
Yeah.
So I'll take some more questions. Councillor Kronen.
I just would like to know, would that basin represent 6 lane, 5 lane?
The basin would be exactly what it is now.
6 lanes.
Yeah, it would stay essentially it would just stay exactly the same. We would have to remove most of the pool deck, honestly. It would be pretty much everything's gone, but the bottom few feet of the basin.
But if I could make a comment about that, 5 lanes is acceptable. It is clearly acceptable.
Yeah.
6 is desirable, but 5 is acceptable for competition swimming. Comment, Marian?
Just for clarification, one of the things we have not done is a complete redesign. We haven't paid any architectural firm to redesign to fit within the footprint. We anticipate that we may have to expand maybe a few feet south or a few feet to the west. But we believe that the design that we had for the new structure could be tweaked a bit and go into the current footprint with maybe the potential of a little bit of expansion. But for the purposes of the grant, we basically just took what we currently have designed for the new construction and turned it a bit and stuck it inside the building.
So is there going to be any consultation with the swimming club or anyone involved with swimming as to what might be needed for that facility then? Or I mean, we know what we're going to put in there now. Do we have someone that's going to, maybe someone that uses the pool more frequently?
Well,
Kind of
are you
help us
talking
with
about
the
the design of
pool,
the basin?
Right.
We've undertook that discussion previously, but yes, I would anticipate that we, through that design process, we would bring them in. Like Jeff said, though, this is a very short turnaround time. We have to expend the $250,000 grant funding and the matching dollars, whatever that go with it, prior to, I believe it's December or March. Sorry, I'd have to pull it up.
I think it might be the end of this calendar year.
Might be December 31st, yeah. But with that being said, Noel has been able to work with the funding organization and people there to identify items that we're very comfortable could be completed by that date. So we would put the application forward to fund specific things that could be done. The basin, with our timeline that we've looked at now with Western Rec, the basin wouldn't actually go in until May of 2014. But that portion of that would come from our municipal funding rather than the grant funding.
Yeah,
So-
we've essentially earmarked the grant funding
Yeah.
for the mechanical system
So
because it can be bought and installed relatively early in the process.
So the
Now-
design itself, it's going to have to be a very short turnaround period. So we will bring them in, but whether we're going to go to large public open houses and all of that, I would suggest probably for timing, it's going to be difficult.
But one thing to note on Councillor Smith on your concern is this design that we had done previously, that we had the open houses on, the swim club actually took that before anybody.
Yeah.
And vetted that and came back and gave us suggestions and cautions and things to watch for. And essentially, this is going to be very close to the same design, just simply turned to accommodate the space. So we wouldn't be, in my opinion, materially changing anything that related to, say, the swim club in the renovation piece. But
At this point, I'm going to allow 2 more questions. I'm going to call for a motion to approve in principle, following which motion there will be a further discussion on that motion. Councillor Court first, please.
You've got the CIIF funding pending approval. Are you fairly confident we're in the ballpark, we're in the running for this?
Yeah.
well, here's the thing about grants. I don't know. I actually do. They've worked through the process with us pretty thorough to this point that if we were going to be eliminated on any early criteria, I'm pretty sure they would have done it by now. And yeah, I think we're at a point where if we can just satisfy a couple last things.
And this is a federal grant, correct?
Yeah.
$1.5 million will do the project then.
Councillor Cronin?
We'll do phase 1.
No, nothing to the building. No. This is simply the basin
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
deck and the mechanical.
I have one question regarding the Cardston County contribution. How certain are we that they are willing to participate?
Letter.
We have a letter of
Letter on the back.
from the county.
Oh,
of commitment.
I'm
On the very
sorry.
back of your package.
Very
there's a
back of your
letter.
package.
Oh, well, you see, that is what I
That's your
did
last
not
piece of
read.
correspondence for the
Sorry.
day. Yeah.
Obviously, I didn't turn the page that fast, sorry, thanks.
If I can just make one more comment before motion is put forward. From administration perspective, we felt that this was a way that we could get a semi-new facility in place, except for the building, for a fairly reasonable cost. We also believe that phase 2 with the renovation of the building could be subject to council saying, this needs to be done through fundraising. It's sufficient to meet our needs as it currently sits, with some maintenance issues there, but it gets us a new pool facility. The other option you have is that we don't, that we just say to these grant funders, sorry, it's not something we're interested in, and we go back to plan A and we continue to try and fundraise. But we've seen the results of that over the last 3.5 years that we've been talking about this. So we really felt that it was something that the $250,000 was definitely worth pursuing, and that's why we've taken that initiative.
The chair will call for a motion of approval in principle. Councillor Edmonds. Councillor Edmonds so moves. Now, we have discussion on that motion. Councillor Dahl.
If I can ask, is your motion this verbatim?
Yes, because that's a motion we
Okay.
require for the grant.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think it's a good idea to move ahead with this plan because it gets us into a new swimming pool and gets us started on what we need to do to improve the recreational facilities for our town.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith?
Just so I have this straight here, the town will be contributing approximately $1.3 million to this.
Minus.
The county will be contributing $250,000 and the blood tribe contributing nothing, is that right? So even though we're all pretty much equal participants in the pool. But I mean, the funding's a little off, but we appreciate the funding from wherever we can get it there, so.
Thank you. Councillor Creed.
I just have a general question and a little detail. We have here the funding, pretty well put out. What I'm asking is how confident now are we on the cost side? As you said, we haven't hired an architect or put out any tenders. How confident are we that the tenders will come in and the fees will come in within this budget?
Relatively, in the fact that we have probably squeezed as much free gratis advice out of architects and contractors as we can to get to this point. So where we're almost at a point where they're saying the next call is going to cost you. So we have been working with Western Rec, we've been working with PDK architects, so that we do have what we hope is a reasonable, and actually what I'm hoping is a bit of a liberal estimate, so that when we go to tender we can come in under this, is my hope. But I guess the other thing, and maybe I'm back here in 2 months from now saying the tenders came in, we're $250,000 high. We're recommending that we go back to the Plan A, which is probably Plan Q or R or S, but we go back to the last plan and wait until we have full funding. But I'm relatively comfortable with it.
Yeah. Now the detail question. I guess one of my first thoughts, and you've sort of answered it in a way. But my first thought was, well, how do we get the mechanical equipment out in the new one? And you talked about boring a hole. I don't know if, on the details of that. Is this something that's cut out? The equipment is changed and then filled in again, or do we have a permanent access?
No, the intent would be we'd put like a double steel door and dig it out with retaining wall and have access.
Yeah.
Let me get my bearings here, but
Big magnet.
on the east side, we can probably get in. We're thinking it starts to slope off, and we can get in that east corner and put an access door. And if that becomes completely burdensome, we have the option of putting above ground mechanical and just abandoning what's downstairs.
Okay, so that we would, in the new facility, we would have access to the mechanical, because right now we don't.
No, we don't have chemical storage right there. We don't have access to it, and unless we can mitigate that, we may just look at building something above ground that it can be in the corner of the whole facility. And we've got lots of room on the north side of the building, should we need to build an above ground mechanical.
Marian, go ahead.
Councillor Kronen had a question.
I just want to ask you, Marian, the first choice union loan approval, what kind of loan are we talking about? Over how many years and what percentage?
That's what I was just going to speak to.
Okay, all right.
We've got basically just from the credit union at this point that yes, they would approve us because of our history. But what we will need to bring forward, this would be subject to a borrowing bylaw. And at
Right.
that time, we would identify all of the appropriate sources of borrowing and competitive interest rates and length of term. So we'll bring that forward to council.
Okay, all right,
as we move forward. The other thing I want to make sure is clear is that with leaving the building footprint as it is, it may give us a few restrictions on the pool because capacity of the pool is subject to capacity of the building as well.
Right.
So there is some things there that we're going to have to take into consideration with the design, but we're fairly confident that it's not going to have a substantial effect.
The council may recall that the previous plan we brought had additions to the building to accommodate greater capacity.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to overbuild a pool that is 100 or 200 people higher than the building has capacity. That looks neat when you go in there, but it's maybe not prudent. So we have a few details we still have to figure out there too.
Councillor Dahl.
And with interest rates at as low as they are today, it may be a good time to borrow that
Yes,
money
that's
to build
right,
this pool.
exactly.
Because
Any final questions?
If you
or-
remember, I think our last borrowing, we got under 3%, right? Yeah.
it'd be
Thank you, Councillor. Any last comments or questions? I will call a question on the motion to approve in principle by Councillor Edmonds. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And thank you to the administration, again, for the great job that you do as these issues come onto our table and we need to deal with them. And there's very, very time sensitive. So thank you very much.
Can I just add, Mayor Schow,
Yep.
could I just ask, when would this be published that the pool will not be open? Once you receive the funding? Or
Yeah,
when?
once we're given notification of the grant approval, which we anticipate will be in the next week or two, once Noel has submitted this, we anticipate it'll be fairly quickly.
So there will be a communication to the public?
Then what we will do is we'll go through that communication process, so.
Right. Okay, thank
people are
you.
aware. Yeah.
The other thing too, I guess we would want to make sure is that once we go out to tender, that we have a contractor that actually could do it this year.
Exactly.
You know,
right.
we're going to be pushed up against it to find
Yeah.
a good firm that can actually dig May 1st. So those things will all come into play.
Councillor Creed.
Yeah, there's another post-motion question there. Are we confident that we would have it back in by 2014?
Oh, yeah.
Western Rec thinks that if they were awarded, they could, yeah.
Okay, that wraps up that issue. We'll move right in with no financial report today. We'll move into committee and other reports. For your interest and scrutiny, your development report is there, dated December 2012. Town council motion list. And now we can move into committee reports. And so let's start out. Does anybody need a 2-minute break to visit down the street, down the corridor? Okay. Ag Society?
No, I was not able to attend this month. I don't know if anyone else attended my spot.
Airport?
I haven't actually attended a meeting. They've been snowed out, but I did make a phone call just to see how they were doing, if they had any concerns. They say if they're happy with the same budget they had last year. Their focus this year will be on doing some painting and some signage. And we also have this little report that Ryan put together, which we won't discuss now, but I think it's something that we will want to spend some time on in the future. So some changes that we could maybe recoup some additional funding by selling hay out there and things like that. So there's some things that we will want to probably be bringing forward.
Do you know when do they meet like quarterly or?
They meet monthly. But they've been snowed out the last two.
Yeah, when you get to a meeting, let's maybe, has there been some dialogue about maybe some county involvement in the airport?
Mm-hmm. That's part of the recommendation here, and I've discussed that a little bit with Doug. Like I say, this I think is going to bring up some things that we will want to discuss and bring back to the table. So.
Okay. All right. South Grove.
I just came back from a working session in Cochrane for the readers in Southern Alberta, representing Sandra Nelson, the chair of South Grove. And it was an interesting meeting where the Justin Reamer, representing the Minister of Enterprise and Higher Education, Advanced Education, really presented to the reader what had been asked of them in November, which is a new direction given by the government in, as you know, we have changed the financing model 2 years ago, which is creating a lot of difficulty for many readers. So that was done, and then there were a session where we were tasked to really redefine ourselves. What is it that we want to be as reader in the economic landscape of Alberta? And what are our top priorities, and how are we able to work with the manager in order to implement new vision? It was an interesting session because we were separated, managers and chairs were separated, so there was a little bit of difficulty there. So it was interesting. Anyway, we are waiting for the notes to come back, and once I have those notes, I will pass them on to you. Another thing that we have had is a meeting with the executive of South Grove, and this is where I learned about the initiative South 50, and I just found out in my notes that will take place April the 30th to May the 1st, I believe, in Lethbridge, if I'm right. And they are looking for 12 entrepreneurs. There will be 12 entrepreneurs there that could access money and funding, kind of model as the Dragon Den, and would have all, they call angels investors, rather than Dragon Den, but same model, same kind of idea. And the cost for the people to attend that and to be heard and to be helped is $30. So it's important for us in our town or in the county to kind of spread the word, and I will try to send you the connection.
Okay. Communities in Bloom.
Okay, Communities in Bloom. We're not meeting at the moment, but we will be. One thing carryover from the summer. We talked about the flags that hang along the light poles on Main Street, that they don't hang very well, and we talked about modifying, see if we could get the brackets modified so that they hang at a lower angle so that they would show. And so Carol just asked me if I would just mention this, if this is something that the Public Works can work on during the winter time. So, and the other thing I was asked to mention was that the Communities in Bloom Committee does a lot of hands-on volunteer work through the summer, and if there's any way that we know of more people that would like to be involved in that committee, we would like to kind of put out a request for more people to volunteer for that Communities in Bloom Committee.
Okay.
I can report to you that I found one more person that will help us with building those boxes,
Very good.
Okay.
and very handy person.
Chief Mountain Solid Waste Authority, that's going to be a fun one,
Okay.
Councillor Kronen.
Well, we had our meeting, and I brought forward once more time the idea of best practice. And this was really, first of all, dismissed, and I brought it back and said that we can't carry on dismissing that item, that we need to revisit it, and that we should be given at the Executive Ad hoc Committee a chance to revisit that item. So I managed to get that much, and the motion was done and approved. So there is 2 more people on board. I asked for the document for the RFP that had been presented and for the reply, and I understand that today they were dropped off in my box. So I shall start working with the 2 other members that have been assigned. And the only trouble is that we will have to bring back a recommendation or a plan, and if the board doesn't approve it, we're back at square one,
Well, and I think the point that
which is unfortunate.
well, yes, I think the point we can be at is that and it doesn't have to be us, it might be Raymond, put forward a grant application.
Well, that's what I said. In fact, the minutes were reported the wrong way.
That doesn't cause anybody any money or any grief or anything. We just need to decide whether Cardston will put forth a grant application, whether Raymond will put forth a grant application, and no harm, no foul.
Well, it's exactly right, but the chair did not want to entertain that kind of move forward unless he had a sense of what would be in that application, essentially. And the rest of the board seems to support him, so what can I say? I rest my case.
My heavens. Okay, thank you, Councillor, and keep that.
I move forward
Well,
a little bit more, we're a
thank
little
you.
bit more moving.
Thank you, thank you. It seems like if there's 11 people in the meeting and 10 people vote one way, the chair also has 10 votes, right? Anyway, Chinook Foundation.
There's still exciting stuff coming out as far as funding goes with the seniors' lodges. We're just waiting for it to kind of solidify. McGrath Diamond Well seems to be in the front running for some changes there. So we're just kind of keeping our fingers crossed on that one. Concerned citizen called about a bad flag last night, so I think that got taken care of. Flag up above the lodge was looking
I've
pretty
been
nasty.
meaning to change that for a while.
One last comment.
Well,
in addition
Randy
to what
changed it,
Councillor Cordes said. The plans, they purchased that land southeast from the Diamond Willow
In McGrath.
in McGrath, and the plans for the development have gone to the government for approval. The government has to approve them, and the funding for the project is $12 million, and 20% will come from people like the town of Carlson, town of McGrath, etc.
Requisitions.
So we'll need 2.4 million somewhere down the road to fund that
Well, there is
project.
some money in the bank still, so
We
we're,
got money in the bank, about a third of it.
Economic Development and Tourism.
Mr. Mayor, since I need to leave in a few minutes, can I report my next 2? And
Oh, yeah,
on the
for
way?
sure, yeah.
Okay, there wasn't anything for municipals, for MPC this month. We have a meeting on the 24th, a special one for something. Okay. Parks Recreation, we meet on the 4th of February. I'll be in getting my knee operated on that day, so if somebody would like to cover that for me, I'd Certainly appreciate it.
Give me a call, I can try to
Okay,
do
it'll be
that.
at 4 o'clock. on
What
this
day again?
4th of February, it's a Monday, it'll be at 4 o'clock in the
Okay.
council chambers. And if I can be excused, I will head
Thank you, Councillor.
to the Lethbridge.
Monday the 4th, Parks and Rec at 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so back up to Economic Development and Tourism.
Well, I will speak on behalf of Councillor Smith since I attended the last meeting. We now have 2 new members on board, and one of them is Mr. Balfours in the gallery, and the other one is Barbara Fox, who has bought the new Laidlaw store on Main Street. Laidlaw store. And we also have, maybe in quickly what I could say, that there is a luncheon coming up on January the 31st, and it's going to be held right here. And the object of that meeting is to invite community people, business people, to listen to a business planning session and the new business loan model by Community Future. So Tony Walker will be presenting on those 2 aspects. So if you know anybody in your neighborhood who is interested in business planning or whatever, let them know that this is coming. And was there a charge to participate? So there's no charges.
It's co-sponsored by the town, the county, and the Chamber of Commerce and Community Futures.
Right, so it's free, and that is an initiative to bring a value to our town from Community Futures, so, and help them to be known in our community.
Can I just ask a question? Is there a reason why Community Futures Southwest is participating in the town now, or what's the?
Okay,
Did we not do that, or?
all right. Maybe
just
I will
curious.
leave this aspect to administration to kind of give us the latest update, because the latest update is a little bit confusing as to the acceptance of all assigned member to that board. So maybe you want to take it from there.
Sure. Councillor Smith, I don't remember if you were here when Tony and the Reeve came and made a presentation asking council to reconsider their decision to move. At that time, we were given direction to continue to work with Western Diversification and determine whether we could leave our membership with them but access services out of the city of Lethbridge, or what was the process. What has happened in the meantime is we've now been given information from Western Diversification asking us to remain with the Pincher Creek office. The message was that they are paid to provide a service to our community, and we need to make them accountable to the community. So from that, at the last council meeting, Councillor Edmonds' name was put forward to Community Futures. We submitted Councillor Edmonds' name. We've now received a request to the Economic Development Board for further nominations for that board. And their bylaws require that they get nominations from the community, and then the board determines who's the most appropriate candidate. I anticipate the Economic Development Board will support council's recommendation of having Councillor Edmonds sit on that board, and we'll move forward from there. But that's why we're still with them. So we're asking, Tony has been at the last 2 meetings, I believe, the 2 economic development meetings. So we are starting to see a little more support.
Okay. Fire service.
Our service, okay. We have good meetings there, seem to have good morale in the department. The budget was reduced by buying half as many radios to keep our requisition down this year. They have a portable repeater now so that they can get good better reception in areas where reception has been poor, and they've tested it in some areas and it's working well. They also have a smart board installed in their upstairs meeting room so that, to assist in training. They have a couple of new members, but here again, this is an area where if anyone knows people who have an interest in contributing to our community that are healthy, they could use some more mature members on the fire department. We're waiting in our next meeting. Danny was looking for a 3-year contract. The county is supposed to draft that for us. Danny's doing a good job. He'd like a 3-year contract. It's a little difficult to evaluate with his position because it's a dual employment. He's working for us, but also for the Alberta Health Services. But he seems to be doing a good job. And Councillor Kronen had asked him if he would do a self-evaluation for us. But otherwise, things are going well.
FCSS.
I wasn't able to get to the last meeting.
Okay. Handy Bus.
Who's that?
Historical Society. I'm guessing Handy Bus hasn't had any issues. Historical Society?
We now have an alarm system over in the courthouse. So if you go in there now, you need a code. Don't, and you'll be visited by the RCMP.
Well, the jail is just there, so we're okay.
You can put them in the cell.
The alarm system also monitors the temperature. And if the temperature gets down below 40 degrees,
Kicks in there.
it starts phoning people. And it keeps on phoning until it gets a response.
Interesting.
We figured that's going to be cheaper than paying another $1,500, $2,000 to get everything touched up.
Or replacing frozen pipes or something like that.
So, other than that, they're struggling. They need more people, and we've got the annual general meeting is coming up in February, and it was scheduled for the day after Family Day, but we're putting it to the week before because everybody seems to be away for that week. So there will be notifications in the paper. So if you know of anybody that's interested in history, we're looking for you. Doesn't matter your age or your shape or anything.
Intermunicipal Development Plan Committee. Marian, do we have anything?
I've talked with Murray a couple of times over the last 2 months. We just haven't been able to formulate a date yet, so.
All right. Okay. Levitt Irrigation District, nothing.
No meeting.
No meeting. Library.
The library has been collecting statistics, and they found that between the years 2008 and 2012, they've had 1,701 memberships. Out of that, 1,217 were for the town, 29 were federal, which they classed the Blood Reserve and Waterton as federal, and 455 were memberships from the county. At the present time, they have 773 active members, so the membership has dropped off a little bit. They have been fixing up problems in the building. They needed some electrical outlets putting in one of the walls because they had extension cords going across the floor. So they've done that. They've also fixed up some problems with the heating system. So some of the cold areas are now warm, except for the basement where they hold the meetings, because there's no heat down there for some reason.
So how does that work there? The membership's going down, but the requisitions are going up? Check into that there.
It's one of those things. It costs a lot of money to run that library. And
Costs more every
You want to
year.
give me those numbers again? 455 were county?
yes, 1,217
Yeah, requisition is automatic.
for town and 29 federal. And that was over that 4-year period.
So Councillor Court was on the MPC, Parks and Recreation, he was also on powwow. I think with powwow, we're to the point where we need to start having some discussions with the folks in
It's the same.
the Moses Lake Committee on the powwow, so I can make that call to Sean Singer, I believe is the chair there, so we can get that going. Okay, thank you for your committee reports, and so now we'll move into correspondence. Alberta Health Services is doing some stakeholder interactive sessions where one of the things they're trying to do is identify gaps in delivery. That meeting is going to be held on the 6th with Cardston County in attendance and Town of Cardston in attendance. 6 o'clock here, on the 6th at 1 o'clock, probably upstairs. Who can be here on the 6th, Wednesday the 6th, at 1 o'clock for about an hour and a half meeting?
Brownlee.
An hour and a half?
We'll go that night.
We'll go to Brownlee at night.
Go to, so
I can do that.
Okay?
So that's February the 6th?
February the 6th at 1 o'clock. It'll be here, likely upstairs, because this table will be gone by then. And then that also, anyone else able to come to that? So I've got David Dahl, Councillor Kronen,
I could probably go.
Councillor Edmonds. Okay.
And yourself, Mayor?
And myself.
Okay.
And then just as a reminder, anyone that's committed to go to the Brownlee will travel up that evening. About what time, Marian?
If we leave around 6, I'm anticipating. Does that work? Okay.
Okay, all right.
are we carpooling?
Yes, there's only 4 of us, so we'll just take the town vehicle.
All right, fine, thanks.
Okay. Federation of Canadian Municipalities, it's being held in Vancouver this year. I am seriously considering attending.
Sounds like an interesting thing.
Yeah, I'm seriously considering attending. That's about all I'll say there.
It's a beautiful venue. The convention center
Well, I
is
think
A1.
I think if you're gonna run for office next year, it's probably a good idea. If not, then maybe not.
Not quite sure. I get your point. I'm not sure that's entirely relevant. Parks Canada has sent us a piece of communication talking about rates. They want to allow people to sleep in the teepees, and they're charging for that. You've seen that. They're going to try to contain the rate increases to some reasonable increases, as is typical of the parks. They want to keep the rate increases limited to not exceeding the annual average consumer price index in 2013 and every 2 years thereafter. But I noted that if you want to sleep on a mat in a teepee, it's going to be $10, so interesting. Gary Bickman, MLA, has a letter there about the recognizing, let me just get it here, deserving Albertan to become a member of the Alberta Order of Excellence. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, please come forward with that. Jim Hillier has a piece of correspondence there wanting us to sign on to the trade agreement with the European Union, CETA. Marian had a very succinct comment, and I'd like, Marian, if you'd make that
If I can say it twice. I'm just a little bit concerned about these trade agreements and the effect that that has on our ability to do our daily activities. As you're aware, we're responsible to the Northwest Trade Agreement as it currently sits, and that requires us to do certain things in our tendering process. And I would suggest that over the time that that's been in place, I'm not sure that it has given us any better tenders or any lower price, but it has created an additional requirement on our behalf. So it's just something to keep in mind from a local government perspective.
And I would agree. I don't see any need for us to, in any sort of serious way, jump in on that bandwagon, because I've got some serious misgivings. I really, really do. If anyone sees otherwise, why, feel free to, make your thoughts and concerns known. AUMA has sent us a nice piece of correspondence, 3 or 4 pages, reminding us how wonderful they are. And included an invoice for $3,524 annually. It's based on a flat fee, size of our population, then goes at something like 72 cents. It's an interesting formula, and anyway, they've reminded us how wonderful they are. The Alberta Health Senior Services Awards, you've got some information there. Again, if we want to nominate anyone in these Minister's Senior Service Awards, the criteria and so forth is there. And a very nice piece of correspondence from the county where they have put in writing their commitment to our recreational facilities and programs, in this case, the pool project. And you've got it all there. It's a $250,000 commitment, half that in kind, half of that in cash.
I just wanted to remind you, Mr. Mayor, that you had suggested perhaps it would be worthwhile for us to send a letter of thanks.
Yes,
to
a
the
thank you letter.
So yes, council, seems like we're in of one
Yes.
accord that we send them in writing a very grateful, appreciative answer on that one. The next thing that we will do is entertain a motion to go in camera. Councillor Creed so moves. All in favor? So our next agenda item will be in camera, and thank you folks for attending. And we'll take a little minute or two to